Mayor Baxter arrives, we'll get started. Actually, in the meantime, I could probably lay out the afternoon. So why don't we go ahead and get started? It's 1:19, 1:20 now. This will be a very similar format to what we used for the county administrator. So this is the county attorney candidate interview and selection meeting. And similar to the recruitment process for the county administrator, we will go one question, start in alphabetical order, and then it will rotate another question, another commissioner, rotate for the next person though. So this way, no one's going first all the time and no one's going last all the time. To review the process thus far, I have a script, so this way we stay on task. To review the process thus far, the county collected resumes from interested applicants throughout the country. Once Human Resources reviewed all submissions and indicated those that met the board designated minimum qualifications, the board reviewed all of the eligible submissions and selected those they felt were most qualified for that position. So that brings us to today. So the candidates sitting before us have met with the commissioners for one-on-one meetings, and our intent today is to further get to know those individuals before a selection is made. All four candidates will be answering questions from each of the commissioners, with all four answering the same question. Once interviews have been completed, commissioners will discuss and make their selection. Please note that these interviews and the discussion that follow are being broadcast live on Channel 20 and are available on pbc.gov. And to those in attendance, please refrain from clapping, cheering, or calling out during the course of these interviews. And then, with that, I am happy to introduce the finalists for Palm Beach County Attorney Recruitment, and these are in alphabetical order by last name: K. Denise Hare, Mike Jones, Michael Napoleon, and David Oddie. So the way the day is going to go is each of you will have up to 3 minutes to respond to each question. The commissioner has the opportunity to ask a follow-up question based on your response, and you will have up to 1 minute to respond. We will have, who's our timekeeper today? Thank you very much, we appreciate that. So the timekeeper is behind you, and you'll see the time up there also. We will rotate the order that questions are answered, beginning with the alphabetical order of your last names. Therefore, Ms. Hare, we're going to begin with you. And normally we begin with District 1. I think we'll begin and work backwards. So we'll go District 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And so we'll do a round of 7 questions. Then we'll feel the board out to see how they feel. We did this process for the county administrator. It took us about 2.5 hours, I believe, to go through the process. And to bring the vice mayor up to speed, we're doing the same process that we did with the county administrator. Got it. Okay. And then, as we did with the county administrator, once a decision is made, the mayor will negotiate the contract. We'll be using Attorney Kaufman as that person doing the negotiation this time. And with that, we will begin with Commissioner Powell. We'll work backwards instead of forwards. And Commissioner Powell, please ask away your question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And my question is to Ms. Attorney Hare. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you for attending and applying for this position. It's very important. And of course, this position means a lot to our county staff, boards, team, and the BCC, the commission. Please tell the panel why you want this job and why you are uniquely qualified for this job.
Everyone, turn your microphones on. This way we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
And pull it a little closer. It's movable, so that'll be better for you. Thank you.
Denise Hare, can you hear me all right? Thank you. And thank you so much for having me here today. It is really an honor to even be considered for this role. It's a very exciting role to serve Palm Beach County which is my home. I've lived here over 15 years, and I love it here, and I really want to serve. I think I am uniquely qualified for this role for 3 reasons: my expertise, my perspective, and my collaborative nature. I am board certified in local government law. I have a Vanderbilt law degree. I've been practicing law for 20 years. I obtained the board certification, which is a very tough thing to do in Florida. There are only about 300 attorneys in the state of Florida that have a board certification in city, county, local government law, and I am one of them. That board certification involved passing a comprehensive written examination, being subjected to peer review and obtaining positive peer review in the community, substantial involvement in this specialty area for several years, and it also involves recertification every 5 years. So I think that makes me uniquely qualified to serve in this role. I also have a lot of perspective, having served as a government attorney for the city of West Palm Beach. West Palm Beach is the largest municipality in Palm Beach County. It faces issues similar to this county, and I worked there. I advised boards. I did litigation, appeals. I did some transactional and contract work as well. And I think that also makes me very qualified for this position because it is supervising a large law department. There are approximately 30 attorneys within the county attorney's office, and they do these different tasks of litigation, appeals, contracts, transactions. And I've done all of those things, so that makes me capable of supervising them and understanding their roles within the county. I also have experience with land use, which is something that the county deals with on a very regular basis. And finally, I would say that I have a collaborative spirit. I'm a good listener. I collaborate. I'm willing to work with the other departments. I want to serve this commission and be able to help it carry out its objectives to further its efforts in the county. And I'm apolitical. I will do that without pushing any of my own agendas. I'm just here to serve and to serve this county. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. I want to thank you for this opportunity as well. This is a very important role and something that I am very excited to be in the running for. So why am I uniquely qualified for this position? I believe I have the longest, most broadly based knowledge of county government law of any of the applicants before you. I've been in the county attorney's office for 25 years. In that position, I have encountered every type of legal issue that the county has to deal with on a daily basis. And if I haven't encountered something like that, I would know where to find out, who knows that answer, where to look for it. I think one of the very important things in this position is your instincts. As someone is sitting, if you're sitting on the dais with the county commissioners and something pops up in your head, why does it pop up? Why does it ring a bell? Where does that come from? That comes from experience. It comes from dealing with issues for essentially my entire career, county issues. I can kind of say I've had on-the-job training for the last 25 years for this position. I am also board certified, as is Mrs. Hare. I was board certified in 2019 and recertified in 2024. Mrs. Hare hit on a bunch of the factors of that, but it's really 3 different things they look at: your experience, your knowledge by passing a test, and a peer review. And I believe my experience, my knowledge, and my standing in the legal community provides support for my application for this position. I've served the last 3 years as a general counsel to the Solid Waste Authority, so I've given this board legal advice from the dais. I've spent the last 4 years as a chief assistant county attorney in the county attorney's office. I supervise 9 attorneys and 2 support staff in that role. I believe that is basically just a smaller version of the county attorney position. The county attorney has about 45 total employees in the office. So I believe that experience also makes me uniquely qualified. In closing, I've dedicated my career to this office and to this county and to this board. And I believe the experience that I've gained and the knowledge that I've gained in the last 25 years here with the county makes me very, very uniquely qualified for this position. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Again, like everyone said, thank you for the opportunity to be up here and interview for this position. I think what makes me uniquely qualified is that I am the only applicant who has ever walked in your shoes. As an elected official for the last 10 years in Wellington, I understand the unique pressure you are under to make decisions under public scrutiny and how important it is for you to have the sound legal advice that will help you implement your vision when you make those decisions that move the county forward while also keeping the county out of litigation to the extent it's possible. I have lived in Palm Beach County since 1976. This is my only home. I've been practicing law here for almost 30 years across a broad spectrum of different areas of law. Like I said, I've been a 10-year elected official in Wellington, currently serving the last 2 years as mayor. I've built deep community connections through my service on various boards and committees and organizations. I have deep ties to the community. I know the place, I know the people, and I think I would bring a fresh perspective to the office. I'm not a career government lawyer. I'm not an insider. I can't compete with the two gentlemen next to me on inside baseball information, but I think I bring a perspective from the private sector to this sector, which is a high demand for accountability and attention to detail. I'm a collaborative leader. I try to build consensus in teams. I think I want to make sure that we improve the lines of communication between the county attorney's office and you all and your staff, as well as the administrator and his staff and the department heads. I think communication solves 90% of the problems we all encounter. I think making sure that open line of communication gets you the information you need to make your decisions. I also am a big believer in building a culture of collaboration among the office. And I know back when I was Palm Beach County Bar President, which is probably over 10 years ago now, I know the county attorney office was viewed publicly differently than it is now. There was more prestige to the office. A lot more people wanted to come here and work. I know there's been some attrition lately, and I think we've got to diagnose why people aren't making their careers here, aside from the two gentlemen next to me. A lot of people have come and gone, and they haven't all left for a bigger paycheck. So I think identifying why that's a problem is a strength I can have by meeting with everyone and trying to figure out how we restore this office to the premier place to work for people who want to work in government. I think, to wrap up, I think my public-private sector combination of experience makes me uniquely suited to this role, and I would love the opportunity to continue my public service to the 1.5 residents of Palm Beach County.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the Board of County Commission. As the others said, I'm very grateful for this opportunity to have an opportunity to lead the County Attorney's Office. This is not a position that is to be taken lightly, and if you are in a position to work as the county attorney, you must have at hand public service. I have proven to be deeply committed to public service over the last 20 years, but most importantly, I have also been a proven leader in the legal department. In addition to that, I've also been privy and have a full understanding of the legal landscape as far as politically complex legal issues and the ethical issues that are in the landscape that the county navigates each day. Over my career, all at the county attorney's office the last 20 years, I've led a legal team through complex, high-volume litigation. And on top of that, I'm the only person here who has worked in the county attorney's office on both sides. I've handled transactions and I've handled litigation. Through those 20 years, I've advised boards, constitutional officers, worked across departments to find legal solutions, legal and practical solutions to protect the county's interest, but also to maintain public trust in the county. Moreover, I understand that this position is not just about legal expertise. It's about, one, stewardship, transparency, and in addition to that, the ability to strengthen and develop the county attorney's office. Additionally, it requires a person who has the connections locally and statewide with your counterparts, so you can provide solutions. My whole approach is to have a proactive legal perspective to see things before they become, well, to anticipate issues before they become disputes and to resolve them to protect the county's interest. I've also had the benefit of being the person here who has maintained multiple priorities for the county. While being in charge of litigation, I've also handled HR for the last 20 years. And in so doing, have what I'd say revolutionized some of the policies that has put the county in a better position legally.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Commissioner Powell, any follow-up? No? Okay. District 6, Vice Mayor Baxter.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for applying. Thank you for wanting to work for us. It's hard having 7 bosses. I can't imagine. So I will ask you, in your opinions, what do you feel would be important to us as commissioners? I want some insight to how you feel that we perceive things, because it will show us if we can trust that you will have our goals in mind when making decisions as well, keeping us legal, keeping us safe, keeping us within the parameters of the law, but also being able to understand that we as commissioners want to help our residents. And so I want to understand your perspective on how we see things.
Thank you. I think first, lines of communication between the county attorney's office and the commissioners is of the utmost importance. I think the commission deserves to be informed, kept up to date, and knowledgeable about the legal issues that the county is undergoing, whether they be in litigation or pre-litigation or any other area. I also think not spinning things to the commissioners is very important. I've seen that happen during my tenure with the county, and I don't like it. I think the commission can understand and is intelligent, and there's no reason to spin. The truth, it should be full candor, truth is what you see. I also think I think it's important that the county attorney and the county attorney's office speaks up when there's an issue that needs to be spoken up about. I've heard that from this commission, from the dais, for some time. You don't want us to sit there on our hands if there's an issue that we think there might be a problem with. And that kind of goes back to the instincts that I was talking about. When that little bell goes off, the county attorney needs to say, hey, the bell went off. I may not know exactly in that moment why the bell went off. I may not be able to give you the full story as to why I think going down that path could be problematic, but I can tell you that I think it's problematic. And hopefully most instances I'll know right away. But if I don't, I would certainly get that information back to you. So I think those, what I've heard when meeting you with the commission and what I've seen from the commission over the last couple of years, I think is what the commission is looking for.
Thank you.
In my perspective, the job of the person that sits to your far right is to tell you what you need to know, not what you want to know, because you need to make sure that you are making your decisions based upon what the law allows you to do. And if you're going down a path that is going to as we say, lead the court into error, it's the incumbent on the attorney's job to speak up and let you know you're going down a path and need to turn around, because this is going to lead to either a bad outcome or litigation. And you can't stop getting sued, but you can try to prevent getting sued in the case you're going to lose. Someone might sue you anyway. So it's a matter of communicating with you all to know where you're headed and where you want to go. My question for my lawyer is always, okay, this application, what do I have to say yes to? What can I say no to? And where's my discretion? And what are the results and the outcomes if I go a certain way? And that's the information I need, and I believe you need, to make your decision. Some things you have to say yes to, even if they're unpopular, you might not want to. People have property rights. Not everyone understands property comes with property rights attached to it. You may have to say yes to something you don't want to say yes to, and the people that are in the room may want you to say no. But that's the job of the lawyer to say they're entitled to that, and you can blame the person in that chair. Say, the lawyer says they're getting this, so I'm voting yes for it, whether everyone likes it or not. So it's to be honest and truthful and give you the best advice I can. And admittedly, the law is not black and white. If it was black and white, we wouldn't need so many lawyers. The law has very many shades of gray, and we don't always know what the outcome is. There's times you can predict it, and times it's more unpredictable. And it's in those instances where we don't know what the outcome would be. This is an unsettled area of law. This is something new, like SB 180. We don't know what that means. We don't know how it's going to be interpreted. So you take a risk when you make a decision based upon something that might be more restrictive or burdensome than previously. A developer is probably going to file a lawsuit. We don't know the outcome of that. But the job of the attorney is to give you the best advice you can to inform your decisions, so you know going into it what the outcome could possibly be and what the results are. I can't make you follow my advice, obviously, but I can certainly provide the best advice I can in as timely a fashion as I can, so that way you can do your jobs effectively.
Thank you. Mr. Adi.
I think the board needs more than just the best advice I can. What the board needs is sound legal advice. The board needs an attorney who is an advocate for the board in terms of the direction they want to go, to anticipate the needs of the board, because very seldom does something come up with a board that can't be anticipated. So it's being prepared ahead of time so that you can have solutions, provide options to the board, let them know the pros and the cons. You're not just the attorney, but you're also a risk manager. So you have to be able to explain to the board what the options are, what the pros and cons are, what is the legally defensible risk that you're willing to undertake, and give the board the decision. Because there's also, the attorney has to see himself as a facilitator. The board wants to accomplish something. You may have an idea as to how you want to accomplish it, and our job is to say, maybe you can't accomplish it that way because the law doesn't allow you to, but here are some other options. You also need to have someone you can trust, someone who is confidential, someone who will be honest with you, and someone that over time you can rely on, that will have consistency, will build an office that has the talent and the commitment, that has accountability, that you can rely on for all the decisions that you need promptly and timely.
Thank you. Ms. Hare.
The county attorney's job is to provide timely legal counsel, to listen, to respond, to do so in a timely fashion so that that advice can be used by the commission, to provide options that are lawful to achieve the board's objectives to move Palm Beach County forward, to provide the legal research that's needed, to be able to stay informed on all of the statutes. There have been a lot of recent legislation and amended statutes recently, and the county attorney has to stay updated on the law. They have to have a great team who's able to assist in providing that legal research, knowing if other counties have passed legislation similar to what the board would like to pass, and whether that's been challenged in a court, and how that challenge went, what was the outcome. That will help to fulfill the objectives and be able to provide sound legislation that complies with the law and that holds up in court. And again, just to be very responsive and timely, to listen and to meet the needs of this board.
Thank you. Any follow-up?
No, madam.
Okay. District 5.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. And before I start my question, I'd like to recognize Dr. Khan. Sir, you were able to fast track the information that I had made inquiry to in front of the board last week, and you were able to get the information that I had asked for before today's meeting. So it is, I appreciate that very, very much. So I'm so impressed with you all, I really am, and I enjoyed the resumes as well as the interviews that we had. I see a great law firm right here for the county, but I think we only have to choose one of you. My question to you, and I'll start from left to right, Ms. Hare.
No, you're starting with Mr. Napoleon.
Oh, okay,
We're going in sequence.
okay. Will you keep me honest?
I will.
It's a high order. Okay. Mr. Napoleon, you've had an opportunity in reviewing this job and the responsibilities therein, and you have been a part of Palm Beach County government with your position in the city of Wellington for some time. In your opinion, what is the one thing we need to work on to change and for the better that you could do, that you could perfect that?
The one thing to change for the better in the attorney's office or for the county?
No, sir. For the county attorney's office.
Thank you. Clarification. I think the important thing you need from the county, I've talked to a lot of people who worked for the county attorney's office presently and who formerly worked here. And they've all expressed to me that there's an issue with, retention of attorneys. Like I mentioned in my opening, there've been a lot of attorneys that have left this office, not all for higher paychecks. So I think looking at, diagnosing the culture of the office and determining, what's working, what's not working, and making sure that everyone has the resources they need to succeed. And one example of that is I know the office has recently implemented, maybe not recently, started using the co-counsel product for AI, for Westlaw, for helping research. And I think that we all need to realize and appreciate that artificial intelligence needs to be heavily integrated into not just the county attorney's office, but the entirety of the county, because the AI is going to be the most disruptive and transformative thing that happens to the legal profession since word processing. It is going to revolutionize how we work. It's already more efficient and effective than associates at research, and we have to figure out the way to implement it to make us as effective as we can, because the private sector is going to be doing it. And I think it's a myth that AI is going to replace lawyers. AI is going to replace lawyers who don't know how to use AI.
I can't hear you. AI is going to
AI
replace
is going to
who?
replace lawyers who don't know how to use AI with lawyers who can. And I think you have to make sure that this office stays modern and up to date and can compete with the private firms that are out there and that are coming after the county on various issues. So I think the most important thing is, building a culture and making sure you stay ahead of the curve on technology.
Okay. So it's the use of technology and using innovation and probably artificial intelligence for use in the office. Do we not use that already, sir?
You use, from my understanding, is use co-counsel, which it helps you in research and analyzing documents. But more and more platforms are coming on, and they can do more and more varied things. They can review hundreds of thousands of documents like that, which require second level review. Soon it won't require a second level review. It can digest depositions in a matter of minutes, what takes paralegals hours.
Thank you very much.
And that would be the same question for Mr. Audi.
Okay.
Mr. Audi.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for that question,
And
Commissioner.
did you understand the question, sir?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
So, as I met with the commissioners yesterday, I handed to each commissioner what I consider my performance and efficiency improvement plan for the office. And I laid out an 18 months course that I would implement certain changes that I believe would improve the office. Without question, the office has talent. What we might be needing to strengthen is the commitment. Over time, that has slipped. One of the things that happened is when COVID started, it was something that, of course, like many others, we weren't prepared for. And we started what we considered to be a trial and error. And one of the things that has really changed the landscape for employment is what employees expect after COVID started. There was a name given called the Great Migration, the Great Resignation, where employees all over wanted more, expected more, and when they didn't get it, they exercised their options. Additionally, there's no question that we have been lacking in terms of innovation. And what I have done about that is, for example, our case management and matter management software was here from the 80s. When I took over, when I was placed in a leadership role in 2015, I initiated a change of that. I met with the then director of ISS to see if we could upgrade our system. It took us a while. It took us almost 6 years to get that system fully integrated, but it has made significant differences in how our staff work. The engine of the county attorney's office is our paralegals and legal secretaries, the staff. They play a tremendous role in our success, and they were the primary users. So we upgraded that, and it has taken us so far, but it's limited. Last year, with the county attorney's permission, I initiated a discussion with Westlaw, and we got more than just co-counsel. Co-counsel is a separate software that we have with license that helps us to do certain parts of our job, but we revamped what Westlaw, the main research protocol is, and got several additional components in it. One called Precision, which is purely AI, has an AI component. Practical Law, which is like a how-to for attorneys, and that has enhanced and really significantly enhanced our research capability in terms of accuracy and speed. Additionally, what I did in the recent months was I brought in companies that had fully automated software.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up, Mayor. Is that what you presented to all the county commissioners? Is this booklet?
Yes.
With your performance and efficiency improvement
Correct.
plan, sir?
Including evaluations for staff starting day one, the 1st of January, because what we've had is informal accountability, but not strict accountability, which is necessary. There's a saying, what gets measured gets improved. And so that is my plan, to have a system of evaluation where we have specific matrix that we assess our attorneys, make promotional decisions, advancement, or training to develop our attorneys within the office.
So are you a transactional or litigation attorney with the county?
What I am?
Yes, sir.
I am a litigation attorney, but I've also worked transaction. I've had the benefit to work in
What was your
transaction.
recommendation in your performance improvement plan with regard to the two sections?
Well, I think that we need to have more collaboration. That has been something that has been missing for the office for
And in
years.
one building?
Ideally, that's what we like. We've been trying to get that through our facilities, and that was a part of the plan that should have happened by now, but the delay of the transition with a restructuring of the building has kept us apart.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, who's next, Mayor?
Ms. Hare.
Ms. Hare. You know the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, go right ahead.
If I were the county attorney, I would plan to instill a culture of growth and accountability in the county attorney's office. I think this is really important. Empowering the staff, empowering the assistant county attorneys. I would want them to take ownership of their projects and to take responsibility for their mistakes. I think nobody is perfect. We make mistakes, and I want them to feel comfortable taking responsibility for them so that they can learn from them and correct them. And that's how you grow. That's how you become better and stronger as a legal department, is by owning these projects. We catch the mistakes early and we correct them early before they become big problems. And the way we do that is by creating this positive culture of communication where people are not afraid to say, you know what, I think there's a little mistake here. I want to correct it right now before this moves further. And we do that and we empower them to get better and to improve. And we create this collaborative team that works together to solve the problems, to address the county's needs, and to assist the board in its objectives. Thank you.
Do you find that lacking today in the county attorney's office?
When I step in, if I were to step in, I would spend the first 30 days really listening to the team. I want to meet with the attorneys, I want to meet with the staff, and I want to find out, how do they feel? Are you happy? Are you unhappy? What's working? What's not working? What can we improve? I think we really need this collaboration and this communication, and we have to work together as a team that feels comfortable with each other.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I know who's left, Mr. Jones. Go right ahead, sir.
Thank
You know
you.
the question.
My main goal in the office is to increase the level of collaboration and communication within our office. This goes back a couple of years. We did a strategic planning session with Dr. Klingscale and with the county. And part of that session, you break up into groups, you do thinking exercises, write things down. And the one issue that kept coming up was the lack of collaboration between the transactional side and the litigation side. So Mr. Oddie hit on some of these things. I have very similar thoughts. First thing is, I would reinstitute office-wide staff meetings immediately. We have not had a lot of those recently. I have my section meetings. Mr. Oddie has his section meetings. But we need to be all together on a regular basis. I think those meetings are, I know my section meetings are incredibly helpful to getting attorneys together in the room, talking about their issues, spitballing things. I have, what do you guys think? I'll open up my section meetings with, hey, what's going on? And somebody will start talking, and we'll be in there an hour later, just talking and helping each other. The second thing I would like to see, and Commissioner Sachs, you mentioned this, was putting us together back in the same building. I don't know how quickly that can be. I know this building is undergoing design right now, but that is certainly something that I would definitely push forward. And finally, I'd like to create a little bit of a mentorship program within the office, something a little more formal than we have. I mean, we certainly have my doors open for anyone in the office, and I think anyone comes in my office and talks to me. I think I've provided that mentorship to many of the attorneys over the years. I'd like to figure out a way to maybe formalize that a little more. When we bring somebody new in, maybe we assign them with somebody. Maybe it looks a little bit more like a private law firm. That type of mentoring situation, I think, is very helpful. I've learned from some greats in government law over my 25 years here, and I think everybody deserves that opportunity. And I think it's just a huge, huge benefit to anybody in the legal field or any other field to have that kind of mentorship.
Very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Okay, District 4, Commissioner Woodward. And you are going to be starting with Mr. Oddie.
Thank you. Have 5 questions, so trying to pick the one to go with here. I think I'll go. Thank you all for this too, by the way. Thank you for your time yesterday with our one-on-one interviews. I appreciate that. We'll start with Mr. Oddie. Can you describe a time when your legal interpretation differed from political or public pressure and how you handled that situation?
I, in fact, have a couple, and I'll use one because that I think is most appropriate. There was an effort through the local community to have the board pass an ordinance. And I don't think anyone would disagree with the basis for that ordinance. It was to protect our residents, and more specifically, minors within the county. At that time, we met with the board, and we advised the board of the pros and the cons. We understood the need why the board wanted to have that ordinance passed. We believed that there were some hurdles and there were some possibilities that if such an ordinance was passed, it might not be upheld. So we looked at different ways how we could structure the ordinance, and eventually the ordinance was passed. As soon as it was passed, to protect the county, as I mentioned, it was challenged. Through our litigation department, we were able to successfully defend the ordinance at the district court and federal court. However, on appeal, we lost and incurred the damages. But we had to balance the needs of the public. It was worth giving the shot to protect our residents, even though we understood why the board wanted to do it, what the political implications would have been had the board not made an effort to try being armed with the information as to how our miners would have been affected. So the board did go ahead and proceed with it, and we just had to give our best effort to defend it.
Thank you. Ms. Hare.
Would you mind repeating the question, please?
My pleasure. So can you describe a time when your legal interpretation differed from political or public pressure and how you handled that situation?
Sure. When I was at the City of West Palm Beach working in the city attorney's office, there was a particular development application that came before a quasi-judicial board, and it was denied. When I reviewed the record following the developer's appeal of the situation, they filed a petition for writ of certiorari in the circuit court. And when I reviewed the record, I thought the record was not very clear that the decision had been based upon competent, substantial evidence, which is the standard that has to be followed in these proceedings. There was an option where the board could have taken the case back and perhaps created a better record that showed how its decision had been made. But the board chose not to do that. The petition for writ of certiorari proceeded, and we made the best arguments we could. But unfortunately, the circuit court, they found that there was not competent, substantial evidence in the record to support that decision. And so that was not a win that day, but that's how it went down. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. One of the roles of the county attorneys that I've had for the last 25 years is I'm usually sought out for my opinion on procurement issues. I represented the county for about 22 years in our procurement protest hearings. A recent example was, you guys remember the hotel RFP that facilities put out on the street within the last year or two. The proposer in that instance wanted to essentially change the deal at the last minute and requested that the county accept that. And it came to me to look at the RFP and to look at the law of the procurement and to make a determination as to whether or not we could do that. It was my opinion, based on my legal knowledge of procurement and the RFP, that at that point in time, we could not allow such a material cardinal change to be taken in the RFP. I believe that was illegal and improper under procurement law, and that was the position that we took. It was not probably a popular position with the proposer. I imagine the proposer had maybe have spoken to other people about it after the RFP was canceled, because at that point in time they were unwilling to go forward with it. But that was a difficult and probably unpopular decision, but it was pretty clear and straightforward and right based on the law. So.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you.
Monteleone.
It's an interesting question, and it doesn't, not being a government lawyer, it doesn't quite fit my experiences, but I've tried to come up with something that I think might answer your question. To give you an example, a few years back, we had a development application where someone wanted to take what looked like just green space and turn it into apartments. And going through the process, they discovered that years prior, without the owner of the property getting notice, the future land use map changed on their property and turned it into preserved property. They never had a chance to come in and petition that and deal with that. So when that came before us, the 3 of the 5 council members were locked into the fact that it said preserve on the map, and they were going to treat it as a preserve. And I believe that they were deprived of due process to come in and make an application and argue why their property should not be reclassified without notice and their advice to come in and do that. So I was prepared to move forward on that application despite the fact that everyone in the room wanted it shut down. But I believe strongly that, due process matters, and they should have gotten due process, and their land use designation should not have been changed without notice to them. And they sued us because they were probably going to be right. So we settled that litigation, or we are settling litigation, but that led to a lawsuit because, sometimes in government things happen without us knowing why they're happening because there's a lot of moving parts, and that was something that happened maybe a decade or so before that no one picked up on until they came in there with an application to do something on that property, and they realized an inconsistency, and I thought they should get the benefit of the doubt on the inconsistency. We disagreed. We were in litigation, but fortunately we're resolving that.
Thank you. All righty. We are now on to Commissioner 3, District 3, Commissioner Flores. What?
First of all, thank you to all four of you for wanting to be the next county attorney. Really appreciate that. My question to you is, why are you the right person for this job? Based on your leadership style and your work values, what makes you the right person for this job? You got the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it me starting?
Yes,
I believe you're
please.
starting, yes.
All right. Is my microphone on? Right now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, very good. Thank you. As I mentioned before, I do believe I'm the right person for this job based upon my expertise and my perspective and my collaboration. And I want to go a little deeper into the perspective that I have to offer. I have worked in both government and in private sector. And I think that that's important because I think it provides really valuable perspective into the world, into the way governments operate, into individuals and property owners and businesses and how they experience the government. There's a lot of processes here that, to your average individual, they might question, why does that process exist? What's the purpose of that? And I think having that perspective is important in dealing with the public and in helping the commission to achieve its goals. I think that perspective is important when guiding the county attorney's office as well. I have experience as a supervising attorney, experience as a chief talent officer for a law firm. I have experience serving on a law firm management committee, and so I have a lot of leadership experience and experience in talent evaluation and mentoring and guiding a team. And I think that's really important right now. We need to really build a really strong county attorney's office that has a strong, positive culture so that they can carry out the mission of this county.
How would you garner, my follow-up is, how would you garner buy-in from your team?
I think it's about communication. It's about listening. It's about meeting them one-on-one, listening and hearing their needs and responding to it. Of course, we have to get the job done. We have to work hard, and I want people to be proud of their work. I want them to feel like they're really carrying out a mission here. They're doing something important. And if there's anything that's causing an obstacle in their day-to-day work, I want to be able to address that, and I have to know what that is and respond.
Are you good with the question?
I believe I am, thank you. So I've spoken about my experience. I've spoken about how I've essentially been performing this job for 25 years and been training for it. If you look, I currently supervise 9 attorneys. And I think if you ask those attorneys, they'll tell you I'm always there for them, that I listen to them, that my door's open, that if they're confused about something or if they're having trouble with somebody or anything of that nature, that they can come to me. And I believe every one of them to a person will tell you that. I believe my leadership style and my demeanor is right for this position. I believe in respect. I believe in respect for everybody, whether they work for you, whether they don't work for you, whoever they are. I think you have to respect people. And I respect everyone that works for me, and I respect everyone in the office. And if I was the county attorney, I would have a discussion. I'd sit down with everybody in the office immediately and say, what do we need to do to make things better? What do we need to do for you to be more motivated? If you need to be more motivated, how do we move forward from here? I believe communication. I said it before. You have to communicate with people. If you don't, you don't know what's going on. You really don't. You asked about buy-in. I think that's how you figure out buy-in. Talking to people, looking them in the eye, and saying, are we on the same page here? Not emails, in person. That would be, within the first 30 days or so, I'd have that meeting with everybody in the office to make sure we were all on the same page.
Mr. Napoleon.
Why the right person? Well, I've discussed my broad base of legal experience, which is, I guess, the lowest bar. I've got a reputation for honesty, professionalism, and the highest standard of ethics. In my experience in private practice, my firm was a 20-lawyer firm before we merged with the 300-lawyer AmLaw 200 firm. In all those roles, I have managed staff, I have managed paralegals, I have managed associates, I have mentored associates. I participated in litigation boot camp where we actually train associates how to litigate cases before they go into court and litigate them on the fly. I've built teams of lawyers to represent clients on cases which require lawyers either in litigation, either employment experience, transactional experience, probate experience, building the right team to serve the client's needs. We've heard a lot that the office currently seems to need more collaboration and better communication. I am an excellent communicator with my staff and my team. Even in the village, if you talk to anyone in the staff level, I treat everyone with the same level of professionalism and respect, from the manager down to the guy who hangs the pictures on my wall, right? You treat everyone the same, and you build a culture of respect. And everyone in the office needs to know that they are a valued member of the team, and their opinion matters. And you have to have an open door policy. Something we've lost since COVID is management by walking around, right? You've got to walk around and talk to people, see how they're doing, check in on them. Part of the problem is when you walk around, there's nobody there sometimes. It's hard to do that. But you've got to make sure everyone on the team feels valued. I know there's lawyers in the office, perhaps because they're separated by 2 different buildings, they don't really even know each other well. You've got to know your teammates to the point where you can trust them implicitly when they tell you something. You know them well enough to know they've told you something, and you can take it to the bank. And that only comes with more contact and more communication. And I think that is something that has to be built up in the office more than it exists today. And I could do that because I've done it before.
And the same question, how would you achieve buy-in?
Well, you achieve buy-in by talking to people, right? You have to have a meeting and let everyone know. They've got to know me, I've got to know them, and they have to know each other. And once you get to know each other and you realize you're all on the same team, you're all moving for the same mission to protect the county, to serve the people of this county, you've got to all be on mission. Once you're on the same mission, it's easy to have buy-in because you're all rowing in the same direction.
Thank you.
Okay. For me, being the right person for this job is not just about what you do internally for the office, but is what you do for the county. What makes me uniquely qualified in that regard is not only have I worked with the office, but I've had the experience of being in litigation and working with every single one of those 34 departments over the last 10 years. And having the transaction experience is great, and I'm going to address my experience with that after. But there's no better understanding of any facet of legal framework than having to litigate a case. You could do procurement, you could do land use, you could do whatever area you are. And advising them based on the theory and the law as you read it and you understand it is great. And if the more diligent you are, the better job you will do. But when it reaches litigation, where the rubber meets the road, is where you have to understand every single component of what that department does. That's what I've been doing for the last 10 years. In fact, the last 17 years. Now, going forward, talking about the departments, you need to have these department directors who understand that the advice that you provide to them is legally sound. I've had that experience, and not only from the litigation perspective, but being the person who advised HR. HR is the one department, well, two, HR and risk management, that touches on every single person who is in the county's organization. And I haven't had the opportunity since 2012 to be the person who leads that department legally. I've come across every kind of situation that there is, and being able to walk that department director through, having them be able to foster better relationships with their staff, but more importantly, how to respect the rights of those employees and have the employees respect each other so that we can keep the county going to meet its goal as opposed to focusing on external issues, and also to achieve their objectives consistently without litigation is where I stand out. I don't think anybody else here has that experience. Not only that, but I'm the only person here who has had that consistent litigation experience of leading a team. No other person here has that experience of leading a team in government service.
Same follow-up question. How would you achieve buy-in?
Buy-in is making the people feel supported and understanding their purpose. I get lawyers with 2 and 3 years experience, with no trial experience, who come into the county attorney's office, and in a year, they're able to try cases successfully against firms with, against other entities that have 4 partners in a private firm with triple their experience or quadruple their experience and be successful. They know they have my support. When my team works, I am there with them. When my team, I don't ask anything of my team without giving them full support. When it comes to being here on a Saturday or Sunday, leaving their families to come and prepare, I'm there with them. They know I'm always there with them to give them the support. That's how you get buy-in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Weiss, and we are going to start with Mr. Jones.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. First of all, and I will thank all 4 of you as well. It was a real pleasure to be able to speak with you yesterday, and I appreciate the insights you were able to share with me. But my question for you is, our county's attorney office plays a vital role in supporting the board and protecting the county's interests. Based on what you know about our organization and its mission, what specific steps would you take in your first year to strengthen the effectiveness, culture, and performance of the office, particularly how it serves the commission, departments, and the public?
So I have spoken about some of the steps that I would take already, so I don't need to go back over those. I think there needs to be more communication between the county attorney and the commissioners, and I would support regular one-on-one meetings with the commissioners to keep you updated on everything that's going on with the county attorney's office. I would, as I said earlier, I would reinstitute office-wide staff meetings on a regular basis so that everybody in the office is on the same page. We would probably do these before each Board of County Commissioner meeting, which is how we used to do it in the past. I think that's a really good time to get together, talk about what's on the agenda. So if someone's got a controversial issue coming up, they can bounce it off other attorneys in the office. They can bounce it off me. They have that feedback as to how to handle something, because some of these controversial issues do boil down to what the attorney's going to say and how the attorney's going to guide the department and guide the Board Board of County Commissioners and dealing with those issues. So I think that's also very important. I do think, just big picture, I believe David Hottie spoke about it earlier. I think we probably do need to institute some level of performance review within the office. I think that's an accountability issue. The county has gotten rid of these performance reviews many years ago. And I know that the county administrator has spoken about reinstituting them, and I think that's a good idea. And I think it's a good idea for the office. They're not always the most happy of times, I think, or, people nobody likes to be criticized. But I do think constructive criticism is something that's very positive. It's something where people learn, and it's something that's needed. And I think that would be, within the first year, certainly would be a very positive step for the office.
Thank you. Mr. Napoleon.
Thank you, Commissioner Weiss. I think, you're talking about strengthening the performance and the culture of the office. And I think that, again, goes back to, we've all said it goes back to communication. And you start with the internal team of the county attorney's office, and you find out with them what their needs are, what needs are being met, if they have any impediments to success. Is there anything standing in their way? Is there any person standing in their way? Is there any person that's particularly been helpful to them in their career and their success? Also meeting with the commissioners and your staff, finding out not only what information you want from the county attorney's office, because there's a lot. You might not want all of it. You might want a certain degree of it. Certain things rise above a certain level. And how do you want to be made aware of that information? Do you want to have a one-on-one person? Do your emails good for you, or phone calls? What's your preferred method of getting that information from your attorney? Because we need to work at your schedule and to your desires as to how you best communicate. I think it's also, you need to really, to make sure that people that are working there are happy and engaged, it's got to be more than just the work. You've got to focus on professional development. They've got to get involved in either skill building programs, depositions, transactional writing, or get involved in the community and build those relationships that make your profession more rewarding to you, so you're not just working and going home, you're not suffering from the burnout because you feel isolated or siloed. I think that's important. Going back to the concept of evaluations, I think performance evaluations are key, but I also think what's important is for the attorneys to do self-evaluations. We do them in private practice. No one likes doing them because they're very introspective and reflective, but you have to sit down and look at your past year and decide where you had successes and where you had shortcomings and how you plan to address them going forward in the next year. And I think that process of self-evaluation and goal setting makes you a better person, because without being forced to do it, most of us don't sit down and take a look at where we are and where we're going and how we want to get there. And I think you also do need, to some extent, an anonymous survey of the office to ask people to get honest answers as to what in the office is working for you and what's not. What's causing you concern here? Because not everyone wants to tell you that face to face, and they sure don't want to put their name on it. But everyone in every office has problems, and they have concerns, and they have to know they can talk to someone about it and there won't be any repercussions. And that's information you need to diagnose whether you have a culture problem and whether it's correctable. So I think that's a lot to cover in a year, but I think that's a lot of stuff that needs to be taken care of to make sure that the team is going in the right direction.
Thank you. Mr. Oddie.
So the county attorney's office is the board's law firm. Our goal is to provide legal direction and advice. The board has to have the confidence to know that they're getting what they need, they're getting it timely, and that it's reliable. One of the first things that I would do is look at the alignment of how the attorneys are assigned. I am familiar with how it is in litigation. I have knowledge of how it's done in the transaction section, but I think there needs to be a revision to make sure that we're getting optimum value by the places where attorneys are assigned, to make sure that we don't have overlap or that we have gaps. So that's one of the first things that I think needs to be addressed. Staff meetings are a low-hanging fruit which must happen, but I think what we need is something much deeper. We need to have a system where, and that's where you have the advantage of being here to see what it is. We need to have a system where we our attorneys are anticipating what the issues are. For example, for an agenda a board meeting, there should be no surprises. The attorneys will know what's going on the agenda way before it gets on the agenda. I believe the supervisors, i.e. the chiefs, have to have meetings with those attorneys. But to start, if I am the county attorney, we're going to have those meetings with me individually to talk about what's on the agenda. So I am satisfied with what's being placed on the agenda, and that I am satisfied that you have that information as to any legal issues that there may be concerning any item on the agenda. That will be discussed with every member of the board prior to the meeting so that you have direction as to the direction you want to go when you get into that meeting. Training, I think that's an important component. I'm not sure what the structure is for the training for the transaction attorneys now, but what I have done for the litigators, I've gone to the county attorney and I've asked to find ways, and we've been able to do it at least in the last 3 years, where we have had a National Institute of Trial Advocacy come in and provide training for the attorneys. That's in addition to them doing regular CLEs on issues that are not just current, but issues that are emerging, and being active in the local bar and being section members in the Florida bar. That also, and having contacts with your counterparts to understand what is going on, I think is an effective way to ensure that we're performing optimally to the board.
Thank you.
Ms. Hare.
Thank you. Communication is so important to everything that we do every single day. I think it's about speaking with each team member, speaking with the department heads, speaking with the commissioners on a regular basis to make sure needs are being met within the different departments and for the board itself. For the county attorney's office, there should be formal performance reviews. This is the norm in the private sector, and we should be doing that here as well. But in addition to having those formal performance reviews, there also needs to be regular feedback. I have found in supervising attorneys and in mentoring young attorneys that these younger attorneys in particular really seek constant feedback. They want to know how they're doing on a daily basis. If they're doing it right, are they showing up and doing the work correctly? Is there something more they should be doing? They really want guidance. They want to become great attorneys, and we can help shape them by meeting with them regularly and providing that kind of feedback. And so I think both the positive feedback and the negative feedback, we want to see their value. We want to note their accomplishments and their achievements and let them feel proud of that work. And then we also want to point out some areas that they can continue working on and developing as attorneys. So I just think the evaluation is important, but when they get to that formal performance review, it shouldn't be a shock. It shouldn't be a surprise, because they should be receiving this ongoing back and forth dialogue about the quality of their work. And we should be meeting again with the department heads and the commission regularly to find out, are your needs being met? Is there something that needs to be provided in a more timely fashion? Is there something better we can do to serve you? Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going last on this round, and I think Ms. Hare touched on it. We have a lot of different departments here in the county. Too many. A big budget. But my question would be, what is your experience working with other departments? And also, how would you cultivate positive relationships and productive working relationships? Because often whatever you do comes from the many different departments we have. So, Mr. Napoleon, you're on?
Sure.
You're at bat.
Right. I mean, clearly I haven't worked in this building, so I can't answer that question specifically to you, but I do understand the concept of the question, which is you want to make sure that the other departments know who their go-to person is in the legal department for various issues. And you want to make sure that people are teamed up and the teams are working well together, that there's a trust relationship between each department and the lawyers in the county attorney's office who have the skill set to assist them. And you do that by talking to people. I'm a big believer in you lead by listening. You've got to talk to people and find out what's going on. Are these departments, are they working well together now? Is there room for improvement? Is it a bad connection? How do you go about fixing what the problem is if there isn't? If there isn't a problem, then you have to diagnose it. But it all comes down to talking to people, working with people, listening to their concerns, and making sure that people are getting the resources and help they need, and they're getting it in a timely fashion so that they are working in the right direction to give all of you the information you need when you're sitting up here making decisions. And that starts well before the meeting. It starts in the agenda planning stage and in the processing of the information stage to even bring the agenda. And that has to be a team effort all the way through the day of the hearing. So I think, again, we've all said collaboration and communication, but those really are the secret sauce to success in any business, in any government. You've got to talk to people, and you've got to make sure that, what is being done collaboratively, and that everyone is on the same page. And if they're not on the same page, figure out what the issues are. Is someone wrong, or they just have a disagreement of opinion? Because sometimes your opinion is incorrect, it might not comply with the law. So you want to make sure everyone is on the same page in the same direction, doing their best to make sure that the citizens of this county are well served by you all when you make your decisions.
And how do you see the departments sharing resources?
In what way?
That's a good question. Well, you said something interesting yesterday about an AI committee. Do you want to elaborate on that? You said department-wise, an AI committee.
I think I touched on that a little bit at the beginning. I'm a big believer in making sure that every business, especially government, is embracing AI, and AI works differently for different departments. In legal, it's a word problem. In other places, it's a math problem. You've got to make sure you're looking for the right tools that are going to serve the correct departments. So I think to make sure you're doing that, like I said, my firm, we've come up with an AI committee that has evaluated many, many tools and figured out how to implement them through different departments: transactional, trust and estates, litigation. We all require different things. We all require different tools. Same as this office, all requires different tools. This office meaning Palm Beach County government. Everyone needs a different tool, and you want to make sure that, one, you're finding the right tool, and then people are using it properly, because you can't always put stuff on autopilot. You've got to make sure it's being used correctly, and then the work is being checked. So that way you're creating the efficiencies, but you're not creating errors.
Thank you. Mr. Roddy.
Thanks. So one of the things that we've looked at recently, and we did it cross-section with litigation, and invited Mike and members of his staff to do, is to meet as we were looking at different software with fully automated with AI as to how we could have direct communication with all the departments. We included the IT department too, so where the work that we do would have direct communication with the departments send us the work through it. We, in turn, have a database where, among other things, is as we provide legal opinions, we'll have it in digital form where they are maintained, where different department directors could actually access those opinions, so you don't have that repetition, because through litigation, what we have seen is many of the departments have the same issues. But separate and apart from that, I think that's a key relationship. And the county attorney serves the board. The board gives direction. The direction is carried out by one of the 34 departments. So the county attorney has to have a collaborative partnership with county administration and county leadership to implement those. I think that's a key relationship that the county attorney and the assistant county attorneys, the entire office, has to have with each department. The department, we have a large number of department heads who have just been with the county, and when I say just, I mean within 5 to 7 years, who are still learning county operation, and they rely on the county attorney's office for legal direction. And you find that sometimes because we don't have written opinions, there's that challenge between what the non-attorney but the practitioner from that department wants to achieve and what they believe they're getting from the county attorneys that is different with their opinion. I think in order to foster a better relationship consistently throughout the county is that we have a system where we're not just addressing issues, but we are trying to anticipate issues to give the departments direction, legal direction. But more importantly, when the issues arise, is how they're dealt with, making sure that they're dealt with promptly and that they have solid written legal opinions that they can rely on that will advance that cause.
Thank you. Ms. Hare.
I think working with the other departments within a local government is one of my absolute favorite parts about working in local government. I think the greatest resource the county has is its people. And it is so fantastic to learn, to have the opportunity to interact with professionals in different spheres. So planners, zoners, individuals in the code enforcement department, the utilities department, finance, engineering. These are experts in all these different departments, and we learn so much by interacting with them on a daily basis. It's fantastic. And in litigation in particular, and in appellate work, you become kind of a subject matter expert in each one of these cases about a particular issue. And you have all these experts at your disposal. It's amazing. I mean, you can reach out to, the planning department and say, tell me all about this. Tell me about this ordinance. Tell me about the code. And they'll teach you. It's just amazing. And we have this great resource here, and we have to be talking to them all the time and making sure that, that the legal department's, providing the services they need, and then we have them as a resource to help us with our work as well.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
Thank you. During my time here with the county, I've had the pleasure of working with basically every department in the county. When I was representing the county in procurement protest hearings, I could go anywhere. I could be with anybody. It could be a facilities issue. It could be a fire rescue issue. I was doing solid waste procurement hearings back in the late 2018, 2019. I think I have a great relationship with the department heads in this county. I think they all respect me. I think many of them seek out my opinion on issues. And I would want that to continue if I were in the county attorney role. You have to reach out to them. You have to communicate with them. You have to let them know, I'm here for you. If you have an issue with your assistant county attorney, please let me know. And that's very important. I'm not saying those things don't arise. They do arise from time to time. It's the job of the county attorney to make sure that gets fixed, whether that's through the attorney that's currently in that position or a shuffling where everyone is made happy, because it's very important. Again, it's back to communication, which everybody mentions, but back to respect. I would be in constant communication with department heads. I get it. We represent them as well as representing the board, so they're very important, and we got to make them happy. And thanks.
Thank you. So we've gone through one round of questions. Would the board like to go through another round of questions? Okay. So if it would please the board, I'd actually like to have each candidate take 3 minutes and kind of summarize their position, maybe answer a question that we didn't ask that they think we might know. Would that be good with the board?
Fine with me.
Okay, you have 2 minutes for your elevator speech. Actually, Mr. Oddie, we're going to work backwards now,
Okay.
because you would have been next in the rotation anyway. 2 minutes.
Thank you, members of the board, county administrator, my boss, the county attorney. I'm grateful for this opportunity. I believe I would be the most suitable candidate to lead the county attorney's office going forward, as we're in this phase where there is significant development within a county. With that development come significant challenges. Those challenges range from land use, transportation, intergovernmental relationships, and the preemption, which is the most pressing thing at this point. The opportunity to lead this organization will be a benefit based on my experience, not just from a litigation perspective, but also from being an advisory attorney to boards, different constitutional offices. And I understand and recognize, as I mentioned earlier, that this job is not just about legal expertise. It's about having the ability to collaborate with my counterparts locally and throughout the state. But it's also about having the recognition to be moving forward and anticipating the needs that are going to arise, anticipating those issues before they become disputes and get them resolved. So my approach would be one of proactive leadership, proactive legal advice to the board. That's
Thank
too
you.
fast, 2 minutes.
It is. Ms. Hare.
Thank you. I would like to tell you about my family's history as public servants. My mother, my father, my stepmother, and both of my brothers have been public servants. And it is a calling and it is a passion. Local government law, all the different issues that it touches are a passion of mine. And I love Palm Beach County, and I want to serve Palm Beach County for the next 20 years as its county attorney. I love it here, and I want to be here. I'll just note once again that I am board certified in local government law, that I am an expert in that area. I bring a lot of perspective to the position, and I'm a listener and a collaborator. I really want to be here, and I thank you again for hearing me and for having me here and considering me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Jones.
I, again, want to thank the board for giving me this opportunity. It's, this position would be the pinnacle of my career. I've been here for 25 years. I've progressed through this office. I started as a staff attorney, which is the lowest level you could be in the office, progressed my way through all the different levels and became a chief assistant county attorney, which is the second highest level in the office. I believe my experience speaks for itself. I have been involved in a tremendous amount of large projects that the county has been involved in. You can see all that on my resume. I believe that speaks for itself. I am also certified in city, county, local government law. I've been a chief for about 4 years, so I have supervised attorneys. I know what it takes to supervise attorneys. I know what it takes to motivate them. I know what it takes to help them. I would love to have the opportunity to continue to do that on a larger scale. I said before, I've dedicated my career to this office in this county, and I believe I have what it takes to move up to this next step and become your county attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Napoleon.
Thank you. In anticipation of this question, while I was sitting out there this morning, I wrote up something so I could be concise and not ramble. And I want to start by saying I appreciate this opportunity to interview for this position alongside my fellow candidates, each of whom I hold in very high regard. You have a difficult choice, but you have excellent choices. something I bring, my background is I'm the first person in my family to go to college. I never in my wildest dreams imagined I would ever be an elected official. I also can't imagine that I'm sitting here interviewing to be the county attorney for Palm Beach County, the place I grew up. For me, this is the right position at the right time. I bring nearly 30 years of legal experience of a broad spectrum of practice areas, a decade of elected service, and a lifelong commitment to this community. I've built a reputation for professionalism, integrity, balance, both in my private and public positions. I understand the legal issues that you face and the realities of governing under the constraints of ever-changing laws. I've led teams, managed complex issues, and made tough decisions under public scrutiny, always with an eye towards fairness and the public good. I'm here today not for a paycheck or a title, but for the opportunity to continue serving the place that shaped my life and career. I'm drawn to this position because it represents the highest level of public trust, to uphold the law, protect the institution, and help each of you guide this county through a period of unprecedented growth with steadiness and integrity. In short, I understand the assignment, I know the community, and I'm ready to serve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Discussion? Commissioner Powell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just want to be clear, I know this came up with regard to everyone as they go through. We had talked about closing out practices, and one of the things that came up was the county attorney's position is a full-time position. If anyone else has anything that they're obligated to, we just want to make sure we get that commitment that this is a full-time position, that you couldn't still have your practice open while being the county attorney, or, so I just want to make sure that's clear.
This is it.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Flores.
One of the candidates here is an elected official in the city of Wellington. I asked a question yesterday, if he would continue to serve as mayor. He had a request. I think it's fair that be shared with the board, because I think that's something that matters. I personally don't have an issue with the request, but I think it's fair that everybody listens to that request here. So I'll, Mayor Napoleon, if you want to address that.
Oh, certainly. I understand that a requirement for this job would be to resign as mayor. I mean, it's not legally required, but I'm sure you're going to require that as a condition of employment. And I would not say I'm happy to do that, because I really love what I'm doing and I enjoy it. But I understand as a condition of employment, I would do that. The way this timing has worked out, I've worked closely with our county attorney, our county clerk, and the supervisor of elections, and I think they probably noticed a special meeting right now in anticipation of potentially this happening. But I didn't want to leave the village shorthanded, and we found a way to have an election to fill my seat, should it become vacant because of this job, on the March election ballot. So my only request would be that I would resign my position effective the date of the election in March, so that way we wouldn't have a four-person thing. I would have to chair like 3 or 4 more meetings before I was done. If you don't want me to do that, that's fine, but I would like to be able to at least continue my service through the election, so that way there's no gap in service to the community. I've been a partner at an AmLaw 200 firm for 10 years while I've done this. I can balance those things, and I can certainly do it for another 2 months while I'm wrapping things up.
Thank you. Attorney Kaufman.
I just wanted to be clear, that means that he would not be under contract until he is ready to resign his office, because we do have a dual office holding problem here. Even though it may not be an ethical problem, the office of county attorney is set forth in our charter, and obviously the elected position of mayor is an office, so we can't have both at the same time.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, that means I need a motion to vote.
So moved.
What it says here, is there a motion to vote? I didn't make it.
So moved.
I'm just
Second.
reading, I'm reading off the script.
Must be the attorneys wrote that.
Really? Did the attorneys write this?
No.
Okay. All right, so let's do it this way. We all have ballots in front of us. Please pick your choice, initial the bottom, we'll collect them. Please note that the top of the ballot indicates what round of voting is taking place, so this is round one. Once you've made your selections, please initial the bottom of the ballot. The clerk will collect them and read the results. If there is a majority, BCC may seek a consensus by vote, at which point the process is complete. If there is no majority, we will go to round two. Yeah, whatever, go to that one. So we are voting on the one that says one.
We can let the mayor read them.
You want me to, Mayor? Okay, hand them all to me. I'll read them.
Nobody wants to read 'em.
The mayor can read them and the clerk can type it in, can't they?
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6.
Her own.
And mine? 7. David Oddie, David Oddie, David Oddie, David Oddie, David Oddie, David Oddie, Michael Napoleone. Mr. Oddie, you have the job. Okay, so now we leave this up to the mayor to negotiate your contract. I will be doing that with Attorney Kaufman. Okay.
Thank you to the board. And I look forward to the opportunity to work with the board. Having served here for the last 20 years, I'm familiar with the operation and the culture of the county, and more importantly, the expectations of the board. And with that knowledge, I can lead with input and insight from day one. Thank you.
You're welcome. Congratulations.
Mayor,
Yes.
I am actually going to be out of the office next week. Would it be
Okay.
all right if Howard Falcon takes the lead in
That will be
negotiating?
fine.
Thank you.
That will be fine. All right, before we adjourn the meeting, because we do have, oh, I'm sorry?
You hand in the cards
Oh,
to the clerk.
I threw them out. Okay. There we go. Before we adjourn the meeting, does anyone have any comments they would like to share? Because we didn't do that previously, and actually I have some, so, Commissioner Powell, any comments? Or Commissioner comments? If not, that's fine. Commissioner Weiss. Oh,
Actually, Mayor, this is a direction I would like to ask. There is, within Century Village, we have 3 buildings that are outside of the precincts within Century Village. They contain about 113 voters. Last time we redistricted, and the request came from both the Democratic and Republican parties in Century Village that we bring these 3 buildings back into the rest of the precincts within Century Village. I believe Commissioner Powell, who represents them, has been advised of this. I know the email went out, but I'd like staff to start working on that so that we can bring them all together.
is this something that we need to work with the supervisor of elections for?
I think not. I think my understanding is something that we do, and then it's
Okay,
Can you
done.
just bring us back more information?
yes, please. Okay. Administrator Abruzzo, your light was on. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to congratulate David publicly. We know, our administration's side of the fence works with the county attorney's office so many times per day, and I've had I know he's in discussion. I've had a wonderful experience starting with the interview process for a county administrator, and then all the different things we've been working together, both publicly and attorney-client privilege privately. And I want to thank the board. I know he's going to be an excellent partner for administration, so we could collaboratively get done everything that you need to get done. So thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Sachs?
Thank you. And David, before you leave, congratulations. I think that your past work with the board, as well as many other, I've seen you work with folks who may be a little disadvantaged, but you reached out to them, listened to them, were very patient with them. And I think that that is a wonderful trait to have as a county attorney. all the attorneys were brilliant, all of them. We had a good choice. Thank you, Dr. Khan. And the other two that I interviewed will be also applying for jobs here because I think they were good, but not as county attorney. You are the county attorney. And congratulations. And if I may, I just want to make sure your dad's safe in Jamaica. Commissioner Abruzzo, Administrator Abruzzo says he'll take a little boat out there to take care of him. But God bless him, and I hope he's safe, and God bless you too. Thank you, Mr.
Attorney Kaufman.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure that the cards did have the names on them of who voted.
Yes,
Okay, the
it's all
record
done.
needs
All
to be
done. Handed in.
complete.
All good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I do actually have a comment. We've directed the Homeless Coalition to come back with some information for us. Can I actually combine that with the agencies that the Homeless Coalition works with? Because I know they wanted to come and talk to us in the future. So let's bring them all together so we can figure out what the impact is going on in our homeless community and how our agencies are helping.
Especially the Lord's place.
Yeah, there's a lot that are doing the work, and I'd like to see them together. Tammy, you can handle this, right? Thank you. I see no other lights on. No other comments.
I have a board direction, if I may.
Commissioner Sachs.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The CTMB is the consultant that we hired to take care of traffic.
WSP is the consultant. CTMP is the Countywide Transportation Master Plan. That's the whole initiative.
Maybe I could have you do this direction. You do it so well. Anyways, the group that we paid, who was advocated by LSN, is looking at transportation issues for the entire county. And I'm asking them, I'm directing them, and to review also what land development has to do with traffic. And so we need this board direction for them in order to do it.
That's already part of it.
No, it is, and it isn't. I asked them specifically, their director, whether it is. And they were very, very professional in giving me a letter. So maybe what I could do, because the letter, I asked them specifically, do they take land development and future land development in their review of traffic? And so they responded in a memorandum. So what I'd like to do is copy all the commissioners with this memorandum, if I could. Huh?
We have that.
You have this. You have this memorandum.
I do.
Okay. Well, if you, and look, we've had a long day, but I will recopy it to you all because of October 23rd, 2025 is the memorandum that I'm referring to. But they do not look at location-specific changes to land use and zoning densities, and is not going to be reviewed. So that if somebody wants to put in an agricultural area, 50,000 unit housing for families, which would house more than 50,000 people, they will not review that in terms of the effect on traffic on that road. I would like for them to review land use changes with regard to their whole data comprehensive plan on traffic. And if you would like, I would send this copy of what I would like for them to do to all of you so you specifically understand it. But it is because of my request that they wrote this very specific memo of October 25th, and they wrote it to everybody. But it specifically says that is not what they do. And I think that this may be an important addition to what they do. So what I will do is I'll send a memo to everybody. I'll recopy you with this October 25th memorandum, and then it's coming up in early November. We can review it at that time. But I think this is a rather important, if not vital, part of looking at transportation.
I agree. I would like that information as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So this is a direction to the board. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else? We're adjourned at 2:58.